know what you thought of the stoppage in the main event there.
Hold that question for one thought. So attendance tonight from Mr. Bond, 15,114. The gate was 1.78 million Canadian and 1.34 USD. The performance bonuses go to Gaethje and Misha Serkinov, and the fight of the night goes to Connolly and Pereira. And with Pereira missing weight, Connolly doubles up on the bonus. And then 50-50, we had a UFC record for 50-50, which is pretty impressive. 50-50 did 95,490. So half goes to the winner and half goes to the Canucks for Kids Fund, which supports 3 different charities locally here in the U.S. Mike, what do you got?
I just wanted to know what you thought of the stoppage in the main event. Justin seemed pretty upset about that.
Yeah, Justin seemed upset. Cowboy seemed upset. It was one of those situations where, I think Jaron probably gave Cowboy, given, his experience and expertise and how long he's been fighting, a bit of benefit of the doubt. Probably could have got stopped maybe a punch earlier. So did the right thing in the end. I mean, maybe it could have been stopped a punch earlier, but, sometimes you've got to give some guys a bit more leeway to see if they can recover or whatever else. But I think from my position, it might have been a tad too late.
What do you think? Not the guy who makes fights or anything, but does Justin's case for getting a title shot after this seem logical to you? Yeah, I mean, it's still pretty busy. It seemed like the division, and there are a bunch of factors that could occur with with Ferguson, with Khabib. I mean, nothing's even planned yet. So, he's had 3 first-round knockouts in his last 3 fights, and his performances are always highlight worthy. He might have 7 performance bonuses now in 6 fights or something, maybe. Yeah. Something pretty close to that, because I think he doubled up a 1-1 fight as well. So, I mean, he's right in the hunt, but who knows what can happen.
What are your thoughts about fighters sort of arguing with the referee during the fight? Because sometimes it often leads to more confusion.
I mean, it's well within the rights to argue with the referee. I mean, my opinion is the referee's there, not my opinion, I mean the rules, the referee's there to protect the athlete. And so the arguing is going to happen. That's always going to be part of it. It's part of sports. It's part of our sport, that's for sure. They're fine to do it. I don't think it necessarily led to confusion so much as it just led to people having to pay attention to what was happening. And in the end, I think the right call was made. On the eye poke on that situation. I mean, that was an accidental eye poke. I think the one thing that probably could have changed was, he gave him time, which was fine, and perhaps the doctor could have been called in slightly earlier. I think there was not confusion, but there was a little time there where, the ref, I forget his name, he was checking out Duffy's eye. Duffy made some comments, and then at that point you got to call the ref in to check the eye out, but maybe the doctor in to check the eye out, and that could have happened slightly earlier as well.
Tristan Connolly had one of the biggest moments on this card. I mean, he was brought in, upper weight class. Yeah. Not many were picking him to win. Do you look at that and say, we got to book him on the next Canada card just to ride this momentum, because this was unexpected? Yeah, I mean, that was, other than the main event, that was definitely the sort of crescendo of the evening. Place was going bananas. It was unbelievable, and it was that David and Goliath story, like he predicted in his text a few weeks ago when he was kind of calling out for the fight. Do you book him on the next Canadian event? We're not sure when the next Canadian event is. I mean, we mentioned this earlier this week. We're going to have 3 next year. We'd like to have one earlier in the year because it's nice to just have them spaced out. But given his performance, Dana might want to put him in earlier than that. So will he be on the next Canadian card? There's probably a pretty good chance. But depending on when that is, there might be an opportunity for him to fight earlier. And you sort of read out the figures for Vancouver. I mean, clearly there's an appetite here for MMA. The ticket sales were good. Do you look at that and say, this is a place we have to go more often? Because I think it was a couple of years since the last time we were here.
Yeah, I mean, we sold more tickets for this event tonight than any other Vancouver event, except for 115, which was Liddell Franklin. It was the first event here. It was 2010. So we're really, really pleased with the number of ticket sales. We were very, very close to a sellout. One of the biggest gates we've had other than that first event. So yeah, we're pretty pumped about it. And Vancouver's always on the radar, and it'll continue to be.
I know there was that kind of joke going that Max Holloway might be the biggest Canadian star. Do you kind of throw a Cowboy in there now with the connection that he's made with this country overall?
Absolutely. I mean, 2 fights in Canada in 6 months. It's awesome, plus a couple others in previous years, including that Matt Brown head kick in Toronto a few years ago. So Yeah, I mean, he connects well. I think his sensibility connects well with Canadians. You know, every single highlight reel or montage we had with him was him, you know, on a jet ski, you know, mountain biking, doing a whole bunch of extreme sports. And I think that just connects well with a lot of the people across the country as well. So, yeah, absolutely. He's definitely in that camp.
It seems like there's been a renewed focus, I could be wrong, on not just promoting the champions, but promoting other characters who are in the top of the division. Has that been a focus for UFC marketing?
Yeah, I mean, are you talking about on an event-by-event basis?
Yeah, you know, Cowboys, in some ways, Cowboy, without a championship, he's still going to go down in history as one of the biggest stars of the sports.
Yeah.
Because of his personality, and you guys are putting him on these Canada cards where he's getting a big reaction. Is there more time being invested into building stars that aren't necessarily champions?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think there's more time, more investment, more resources, more people around the Endeavor family that are, you know, focused on building guys and girls that, you know, as you say, aren't necessarily champions, but we want to make sure that the pathway is clear. So once you become a champion, people know who you are, right? There's a long building, long cycle, but the other thing is there's only so many belts, right? So not everyone's going to be a champion, and it behooves us to make sure that we're promoting everyone across any nationality, any gender, any culture, any language, to make sure that, you know, people's profiles, fighters' profiles, are as big as possible. So, yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily renewed. I think it just keeps ramping up. And because of, you know, the Endeavor acquisition, we've got the ability to take some of our athletes and get them into movies, and they're doing books and in commercials and all these types of things. And I don't think we've ever been in a place that we're in right now in terms of, you know, the support we can give to our athletes.
How has that relationship with the entertainment industry been? Because like you said, you know, we're seeing Tyron Woodley on TMZ. We have fighters training with actors at the Limitless gym in California. What's that part of it been like?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, that keeps rising as well. I mean, that's a pretty obvious statement with the connection to Hollywood and the talent business that Ari and Mark manage. I mean, the opportunities are endless for the fighters, and anything to get the name out there, get athletes in the mainstream focus is important to us.
Presidential candidate Andrew Yang just posted, "Give Justin Gaethje Khabib." Is there any way to leverage that?
Give Justin Gaethje Khabib?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's nice of him to say, and he's obviously got a huge platform. And whether, I'm not sure if Gaethje's in the Yang Gang or not, but yeah, what do I say? It's great. Is that going to influence the decision? I don't think so.
David, we're talking about marketing. Given how Tristan, his debut, Misha having a very rare submission, kind of getting back on track, is it hard not to kind of think about, again, that next great Canadian star could it be one of these guys? Is it hard not to look ahead to that?
Yeah, I mean, like with Tristan Connolly, the best thing about him was he was just like he was so Canadian. Like he stood in there, he was hard. Like he seems like he's like five of my buddies, right? Like he's the guy that I think can click well with a lot of people across the country. And I think the way he fought, his game plan was executed perfectly. You know, he didn't get overzealous. He didn't get sort of, you know, rattled by Pereira's tactics. He remained pretty calm, and then, you know, when the time was right, took him down. Some ground and pound in that third round sort of sealed it. Yeah, it's going to be fun working with him in the next little while.
I know you said it's too soon to talk about the Canadian dates, where, when. What about internationally in general? Are there any new territories you're looking to expand into, say, Q1, Q2, 2020?
Yeah, I mean, territories are probably going to remain largely similar to this year. I mean, we'll be out and we'll have a couple events in Russia. We'll be back in Abu Dhabi. We'll have a few in Asia, probably 3 or 4 in Asia, 2 in Australia, 3 in Brazil, a couple LATAM, and then say 4 or 5 others through EMEA or through Europe. So we've got a couple new countries on our list. Nothing to report now, but I think if you're trying to figure out the international distribution where events are going to fall, it's going to be pretty similar to this year. Though, as we talked about earlier in the week with the Performance Institute in Shanghai, you know, we're hopeful to introduce some new concepts for the region there.
David, I'm going to put you on the spot. If you could snap your fingers and put an event in any Canadian city that hasn't had a UFC event before, what city would it be?
That hasn't had one? I mean, we always talk about the power, you know, and the importance that London, Ontario made to Canadian MMA, and so that's always been on the list. And Windsor has too, because I think in southwestern Ontario, sorry, there just seems to be a plethora of good MMA talent. You know, it goes back to one of those things we were talking about earlier in the week, which is, do we go to London and not go to Toronto? Like, does that make sense for our business? safe to say when we go to Toronto, a significant amount of tickets are sold there as well. I don't know. I mean, listen, we loved going to Moncton a year ago. You know, Halifax we've been to a couple times. I think getting out to Atlantic Canada again could be great. We've never been to Regina, you know, and so there's thoughts about getting to Saskatchewan at some point as well. So who knows? There's still some decisions to be made.
Cool.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot.